Hello, my name is Y Lam and I'm with Drone Rental Supply, and today we're going to do a quick vlog about our new racing quadcopter that we're coming out with. This is going to be a replacement for the DRS250, and we feel that it's going to be a significantly better item. So we'll go ahead and give you our first initial thoughts. Keep in mind that this is not completely done yet, but it's close enough to where we want to show it to you and get your feedback. So right now on the table is actually a variety of quadcopters that we have been working with. So on one side of the spectrum is a pre-built, ready to go, everything you need, but very not very customizable in terms of what you can put on it. And on the other side is a fully customized version in which everything is soldered on and you have to build yourself. And what we have in the center is kind of what we cater to, which is something that's pre-built, but it's also with custom parts. So what I want to do is just talk about each one and how we actually incorporate it into this one. So if you come down over here to the Wakira Runner 250, what we have is a very cost-effective quadcopter. The only issue with this one is that you're stuck with just Wakira parts. So if you wanted to try other motors, other ESCs, other flight controllers, you really can't do that. You can do a little bit of tuning, but you're pretty much stuck with whatever Wakira gives you. So again, really good out of the box if you just want something ready to fly, but not very customizable. Now if you go all the way down here to the other end, to the opposite spectrum, this is a quadcopter from QAV, or from Luminaire. It's a QAV 250, and you can select all the parts you want and you have to put it together. And you know, that makes it a very nice customizable unit for your taste, but you're gonna have to do a lot of solder work and you're gonna have to do a lot of customizing yourself. So if you do this, you're gonna have a lot of work putting it together yourself, and when you break something, you're gonna most likely have to do a lot of soldering and a lot of troubleshooting yourself. So great unit, but for a lot of people that like to buy from us, this is probably too much work in which they want to actually go through the trouble of putting one together themselves. In the center is kind of what we cater to, which is the DRS250 in our future DRS model. So what we have on this one was actually a very good 3S unit, 3-cell unit. But the issue we have with this one is this is actually not a 250 millimeter frame. This is actually 280 when you measure diagonally. It's 250 if you measure over here, and that's not how you're supposed to measure. So this is the reason why it's able to swing these 6-inch props so easily. It's because the frame is much larger. In fact, if I were to just go ahead and put these together, you'll notice that it's a much larger frame. So because this one over here on this side is a 250 millimeter frame. Again, it's a great quadcopter, but we decided to move away from it because of the frame. So we wanted to design something that was 250 millimeters. So that's kind of where we are with this one. It's still actually in the testing phase, but it's close enough to production to where we just kind of want to show it to you and to show you our design philosophies and, you know, just give you initial impressions of what it is. We incorporated a lot of good features in it. It's going to be very customizable, but it's going to be ready to fly. It's going to come with its own controller and everything, so you can just take it out of the box and you can start flying it. So we'll go ahead and go into details about what's in the version 2 of the DRS250. So when we began designing the second version of our DRS250, we had a few goals in mind, and we wanted to make sure we hit them. The first goal is that we wanted to keep it as a ready-to-go system, which means you charge the batteries, you put batteries into the transmitter, and you're ready to fly. But we also wanted it to where if you already have a Spectrum transmitter, which a lot of people do, you don't need to buy our transmitter that comes with it. You can just buy the quadcopter and you can bind it to a Spectrum transmitter as long as it can connect to this orange receiver right here. So any of these Spectrum transmitters should be able to bind to that orange transmitter. All you have to do is come over to this side, put in your bind plug, and then bind it to your own transmitter. So that's the first thing that we wanted to solve. Something that's ready to go, but it's also bind and fly ready if you already have your own transmitter. After we solved that problem, What we wanted to retain from our original DRS250 was the ability to actually be able to replace your own components easily. So every component from motors to ESCs to the flight controller are all with standard JST plugs or bullet connectors. So if something breaks, you can easily remove that part and then just connect it via bullet connectors and JST connectors. There's no soldering that you would have to do if something were to break on this product, and if something did break and you couldn't solve it yourself, you can always send it back to us and we'll resolve it for you. This is only with products that we sell and we build, of course. For things like the Wakira, we really can't help you with that, as that's proprietary to Wakira, and really it's going to be their customer service that needs to solve something like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at each component in there directly. Right now what you're seeing is this is a Voodoo frame. This is a US made frame that we really like. We initially thought we were going to go with a QAV frame because it's very popular and you can find a lot of accessories with it, but the more we worked with it, the more we didn't really like going with the QAV frame, and we decided to go with this Voodoo frame because one, it's really good looking, and two, it's a US manufacturer, so we always want to promote any US manufacturers when we can, and they've been working with us, and it's been great dealing with them. If you look up front over here, one of the nice things about the the Voodoo frame is that it has a really nice integrated camera system to where you can tilt your camera very easily. This is not like an afterthought part. It's very well put together so that when you first initially fly, you might want to aim your camera directly forward, but as you become a more experienced flyer, you're going to tilt this up more so that when you're flying like this, you can still see the view in front of you rather than looking at the ground. So a really nice camera tilting system that comes with the Voodoo frame. Once you go in here, what you see is the transmitter. We're going to be using most likely a Lumineer brand or a brand that's going to have the race bands, and whatever transmitter that we use that we're going to fit in here, we're going to go with a push button variety so that you can actually change the bands without having to deal with dip switches. We're really big fans of the push button transmitters, the push button video transmitters, because it's so easy and it's just so much more convenient than those dip switches, which is really hard to get to. So we might go with this Lumineer brand. We're still kind of testing it right now. One of the things that we don't really like about this is that it gets really hot, so we're kind of evaluating on whether or not we'll stick with this new Lumineer 600 milliwatt video transmitter with the push button. When you go in here, this is our flight controller. The flight controller we're going to be using is the F3 flight controller. This is the upgraded version of what you would see in an AZE-32. It's like the next progression of flight controllers. Very good flight controller, and it also allows us to do some black box tuning, which means you can actually tune with just flight logs and data. So really cool. We'll get more into that when we actually kind of finish out this particular quadcopter. You'll notice that in back here are all of our ESCs. So this is kind of one of the design philosophies that we kind of like, is that we want our ESCs easily accessible, and we also would like them to get plenty of air, because just like motors, ESCs get really hot very easily. So very easily replaceable when they're back here, and also they get a lot of air. So it's just one of the design philosophies that we have. Again, everything on the ESCs is either connected to a JST or a bullet connector or one of these servo wires, so they're easily replaceable if you actually have one that blows out. Here's the antenna for our video receiver, for our transmitter, or video receiver, not just our receiver. Here's the antenna for getting the video out. And then we're going to go ahead and come to the bottom. So one of the things that we did, and we're going to continue doing this, is that each motor is color coded to these zip ties. So if you ever need to replace a motors, you can just follow these zip ties. Like for instance, this motor up top, all the zip ties to go to that motor are blue. Down here, all the zip ties that go to that motor is red, and back here yellow and orange on this side. You'll also notice that up front here we have a special GST connector just for our video devices. That means that if you were to ever want to disconnect your video, which is a lot of times you actually do, especially if you're just working on it and you need to plug it in, you can easily disconnect your video transmitter, which is located up here, because these actually get very hot. So if you don't have a lot of air moving through them, you can easily fry them. So being able to disconnect power to them while you're working on your quad, whether you're tuning it or you're just working with the flight controller, just disconnecting it will probably save the life of your transmitter and definitely extend its life. So that's actually a really good feature. If you're going to be like flying with a lot of people, this is also a really good feature in the fact that you can easily disconnect it, and when you're actually just at the field and you need to connect it just to look at a few of the settings, you're not going to accidentally plug in and kill somebody else's video if you're really close to their frequency. So I actually like to have this disconnected when it's just sitting on the ground, so I don't accidentally plug in and then kill somebody else's video. So very nice feature.
You ready? Yep, go for it.